Ballz. That's it. Not 3D Balls or Ballz 3D as the confusing and ever-present logos might have you believe. Just Ballz. That's the name of a game for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System and Sega Genesis. It was also released on the 3DO, but I don't have that version, so even though it's supposed to be the best version of the game, you're going to see from this video that probably still isn't saying too much for it. Ballz is a 3D fighting game developed by PF Magic in 1994 and published by Accolade. The game plays very much like the 2D fighting games of the 1990s, games like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Samurai Showdown, Killer Instinct, and the like. However, its main standout is that, unlike the attempt at photorealistic sprites of characters in Mortal Kombat or the pre-rendered sprites in Killer Instinct, the art style for Ballz is, well, balls. The characters are made up of 3D spheres, all rendered in real time by the console hardware, and the environments themselves are also 3D, allowing combatants to move toward and away from the game's camera. The gameplay itself plays much like many other fighters of the era. A basic assortment of punches, kicks, and special moves exist for each character. They even have special finishers which will take away the remainder of opponents' health and cause the character to lose cohesion. Unfortunately, the game also is a bit choppy when you play it. It's not unbearably unsmooth, and honestly, the Genesis version probably plays a little bit better than the SNES version, as the game was originally developed for Genesis hardware and then ported to the SNES. The graphics of both games are simplistic and revolutionary at the exact same time. The SNES has textured floors rather than a gradient floor in the combat arenas, but overall the graphics between both versions of the game are extremely similar. Why do I say they're revolutionary? Well, I reached out to Keith Kirby, the man responsible for the game's design and concept. Being kind enough to answer a few questions about this relatively obscure game, he told me that they genuinely believed this was going to be the world's first fully 3D fighting game, rendered in real time. Unfortunately, Virtua Fighter beat them to market by just a few months. But these are not just character sprites and balls. Each character is made up of individually rendered spheres and placed in a 3D environment. Kirby told me, the trick for Ballz in the beginning was the characters were built out of sprites. In memory, we stored a lot of the different sized spheres. We didn't have very fast hardware, so we had to do that trick to display in 3D. If I understand him correctly, they took a sprite, then split it up into several spherical chunks, and used the original sprite to texture the spheres. It was definitely a unique look, and is one of those games that, while maybe not great, has stuck with me since my childhood because of its distinct visuals. A couple of the background music tracks for the game are catchy, but overall the game's music score is pretty low for me. It doesn't seem to evoke any specific emotion, doesn't seem to tie into the individual characters' themes in most cases, and at its worst, just sounds like somebody was experimenting with a bunch of different sounds and forgot to actually make a song out of them. There's not even a sense of rhythm, it's just button pressing. The sound effects don't add much to the game. Sometimes they try to ground you in hard thuds and thwacks. Other times they're comedic and abstract and don't have any intention of making you feel like there's a real universe for Ballz to take place in. As far as story goes, the manual has a tiny bit of introduction, so let's pair it up with the intro found in the game as well. Ballz is arena combat, pure, rude, and simple. You don't need to know any more than that, so don't ask. You either whoop us or you go down. Don't like it? Hike it. You can be replaced. Who am I? I'm the Jester. That's all. The Jester. Wizard of Wit, Sultan of Insultant, Poobah of Put-Downs, Tyrant of Trash Talk, Duke of Dozens, Ayatollah of I Told You So's, Godfather of Gross-Outs. You wanna bust my balls? Lots of luck, Chuck. It's gonna take you a while to get to my level. You're fighting for belts, but you're taking welts. You start with nothing and take a whooping. Punch your way to red or you'll wind up dead. Want to get to green? Your clock will clean. Advance to blue when you get a clue, and I'll cut you no slack when you get to black. Pick up belts along the way, because you can't advance to the next level without them. You probably won't need to know that, because you'll probably wheeze somewhere around red. By the way, it's real important that you stop and read the rude comments on the scoreboard. They're mine. This way you'll be distracted, get shattered, and lose. Which is exactly what I want to happen to you, Dingleberry. When you lose, I laugh. Nobody ever said that the Ballz Arena was a nice place. Also, to keep the place looking lively, we like to project pointless little slideshows up on the back wall. If you're doing well, we'll put your scene up there. It's just another distraction. If, by some miracle of genetics, you manage to get all the way up to the black belt level, then you meet me head on. I'm trembling in my trousers just thinking about it. When I get through booting your balls, you might as well put on pink pedal pushers and ask a first grader if you can play with her dolly. But you're not going anywhere, Poindexter, until you pick a fighting style. You also might have noticed in the video the difference between the SNES and Genesis versions. You gotta play balls instead of you gotta have balls. That's 1990s Nintendo making sure their kid and family-friendly image doesn't get tarnished. But still, that's all we're really given, just a boss character from the game lobbing insults. It's not much of a story. But what's this page found in the manuals of both the SNES and Genesis versions of the game? In an interesting questionnaire-like presentation, you're given some possible explanations for the universe this game takes place in. The questions include things like, the Ballz arenas are located in a heretofore undiscovered dimension, a city on a distant alien planet, an obscure corner of the cybernet. And the Ballz fighters are gladiators from another world, characters reflecting their creators' personalities, athletes of the future. Although the manual discounts all theories with a simple, who cares, snarky response, I'm always on the quest to learn more about the story of each game I play. Sadly, when I asked Kirby if he ever considered any of these answers to be more correct than the others, if he had some kind of headcanon or set fiction he believed for his own game, he responded with, those were written by someone at Accolade for the purpose of the manual. They, like you, saw a void where a defined world and story should be, and tried to solve it with some interesting text. While it was a bit of a letdown to learn that the game's developers never intended for it to have much in the way of story, it's almost understandable, because the game was actually intended to serve more as a tech demo for a new piece of Genesis hardware, the Edge 16. While there's more information about the Edge 16 elsewhere online, the basic gist is that the Ballz developer PF Magic was working on something that would allow multiplayer competition on the Genesis, and Ballz was being designed to allow modem play to fight your friends over a phone-dialed direct connection. According to Kirby, quote, the version of Ballz that shipped was much different than the original concept. The original game had a bunch of features that were cut. Our company, PF Magic, Pure Magic, named for what our founder Rob Fulop used to use as comments for his code, built a modem for consoles that also used smart cards. Ballz was meant to be the launch title for the hardware. Remember, this was pre-internet. The modem allowed players to play peer-to-peer over the phone. The smart cards allowed players to save their character's progression and bring them to an arcade or to their friend's house. The modem never shipped, so many features were cut last minute. End quote. There were so many other features planned for Ballz. It's understandable that any kind of story would simply be left as an afterthought. There were too many other cool things trying to be crammed into the game. And even though Accolade did their best to address a lack of story in the game, they weren't about to create a completely unsanctioned backstory without the developer's approval, and they had to get the game out the door. So, since there isn't a lot of story, players will just have to settle for subtle and not so subtle innuendos found in the game. There's no doubt it would be a much easier game to create today, and makes one wonder why the franchise has never gotten a reboot. But Kirby himself these days has moved on to VR projects, including the equally absurd Drunken Bar Fight virtual reality game. The game clearly lacks story and is just meant to be an experience using the latest in gaming technology. But that just goes to show how consistent Keith Kirby really is. But at least this way you know that whether you're looking for balls or beers, you're not going to find our story so far. Hey everybody, thanks for watching episode number 57 of Our Story So Far TV. Ballz is one of those weird games from my childhood that's always stuck out like a sore thumb, so I thought I'd go back to it and just see what it was like. If you remember playing this game or you think you might want to try it, leave a comment, let me know. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you really liked it. If you want to talk more, I'm always available on Twitter @NewAngel, that's NUANGEL. If you're looking for more of the same and don't know where to begin, OurStorySoFar.tv has every episode archived in 1080p quality. And even though it's the holiday season, I like to try to have a new episode ready for you guys every 2 weeks. So, until next time, Take care of yourself.